Welcome to the NBA 2K G League show. I am your host, Varun Chari, and welcome to the show. So on today's episode, we are going to talk about how the Washington Wizards trade deadline ended up really affecting the capital city Go-Go. We know that the Wizards have traded away Kyle Kuzma, to the Milwaukee Bucks, along with Patrick Baldwin Jr. So we see these two guys go. Now, the biggest thing here is Patrick Baldwin Jr. because he's been with the Wizards and Go-Go really for the past year and a half. I mean, he was part of that trade when they had gotten Jordan Poole, and he's been kind of okay at points with the Wizards, but not probably as great as they were hoping he would be. And so he was still going to have some development. They declined his rookie option for the following year, so it was kind of clear, the writing was on the wall that they probably weren't going to be bringing him back. But he was even assigned to some games too this year, even with the Go-Go, so that was probably part of to get his conditioning and just to kind of show what he can still do as they try to look to trade him. So we see that they trade him. He gets traded to the Spurs immediately from Milwaukee. The Spurs cut him, and then we see that he signs with the Clippers and gets a two-way with the Clippers. So that's with Patrick Baldwin Jr., right? So we also see a similar thing kind of happen with Johnny Davis, who has also been with the Go-Go for the past 3 years. I mean, he played a good amount his first year, played sparingly his second year, and played one game, if I'd say this year with the Go-Go. And so he gets also traded to the Grizzlies as part of a 3-team trade, but ends up then getting cut and signs with the next G League team. So those are two big guys, I'd say, who had spent time with the Go-Go these past few years, who are now no longer with the franchise. And so now let's kind of pivot towards some of the other two-way contract guys who also are no longer with the Go-Go. So we got Jared Butler, who was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. They got a bunch of second-round picks as the Wizards were trying to get a first-round pick. So, it was, again, part of the strategy that I've talked about in my video in the fall about how the Wizards kind of build guys up. We saw they do a similar thing with Jordan Goodwin, where he had played a lot of minutes with the Go-Go, gradually continued to keep getting better, and then, the Wizards had then signed him on a two-way and then gave him a regular roster spot, and then traded him to the Suns as part of a trade with Bradley Beal. So, it's cool to see how these guys are developing. They're able to then use them in trade packages. It's a really smart thing. Like I said, even when I was making my video back then, that it makes sense why they're doing this, and I wouldn't be shocked if we continue to keep seeing them do this trend. So then the last two things that happened was that Justin Champagnie got his contract converted because he hasn't really played anymore with the Go-Go really since December. Once he got called up and was starting to play rotation minutes, he pretty much did so well that he stayed in a rotation and now has gone a multi-year contract with the Wizards. So that opened up a roster spot. But also, and I think the last really major loss of the team that's changed is John Butler Jr. is no longer with the Capital City Go-Go. Now, I don't know if this is fully true. I thought I saw something on Twitter. I'm not sure how reliable of a source it was, but I think they said that John Butler Jr. had worked out with the Milwaukee Bucks for a two-way contract as a potential option. Obviously, they awarded that two-way to Pete Nance, Larry Nance's brother, but them trading for John, John was with the franchise really since last year. I mean, it was kind of tough for me as a fan seeing him leave because, like I said, I've been at all the games since last year, this year. I was at Summer League and, the showcase, so it was really tough to see that, but obviously, it's best for his career, and so I'm really excited. I think he's been playing really well after Wisconsin Herd, and so now he gets a chance with the Buxton Herd organization. Now, there's one more player, and that's RJ Nembhard, Ruben Nembhard, who is no longer with the Go-Go. He actually had a buyout and decided to go overseas, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So let's first go into now the players they added after this trade deadline. So they added AJ Johnson, who, is a really young point guard that the Bucks had. He came out of Australia last year. I think he's from California. So, he's had a really, he's looked pretty good in his G League games at points. And I think he's a really young prospect that the Wizards probably liked. I think Doc Rivers even said that they were trying not to trade him. They were trying to really hold on to him. But at the end of the day, they couldn't keep him. And so he ended up with the Wizards. Now, the Wizards made a really good trade there. But that ends up, they end up having to sign him to the G League, which they did, which I kind of knew was going to end up happening. It's helpful for him to learn the playbook. He's definitely going to be with the Wizards summer league team. And so, it's just a low risk, high reward type of situation. And so with AJ Johnson coming to the fold, I honestly felt that with Nembhard leaving, I think it was going to be challenging for RJ Nembhard to really stay with the team. I'm not too sure about, why he left or anything, but you have to think about it. If he was going to be on this roster, along with Kira Lewis Jr., along with AJ Johnson play minutes, there would be points where he just wouldn't be playing in the games. Or maybe, especially with Kira Lewis coming back. Kira Lewis was supposed to be the starting point guard for the Go-Go, but then he got hurt, and then that ended up affecting his position with the team, and then he started coming back, and he's actually been really healthy. So you see that, and then if AJ Johnson's going to have to play, Coach Top is going to have to make some tough decisions. So I think Nembhard leaving to go overseas, he gets more money now if he plays in China, which he is. I think that was a smart move for him. Technically, it was a buyout, so the Go-Go still own his rights if he wants to come back next year. So, again, it was a good move, I think, for him, and I think for the Go-Go also in the Wizards having AJ Johnson, who, I kind of see a little bit of, some bounciness in his game. Like, his ability to change speed is, I think, what makes him really unique. And so that's, it's fun to watch him play. He's very athletic too. So we see then also in that 3-team trade, when they sent away Johnny Davis, that they also got Colby Jones. Now, Colby Jones is kind of like more of the opposite of AJ Johnson in terms of his years of experience. He's played more at college basketball. I think he played at Xavier. He was an older player coming out of college into the draft, and the Sacramento Kings drafted him. Really has not played much with Sacramento, but he has the potential to be like a 3-and-D type of player, like a Josh Hart. I'm really excited to see what he can continue to do. I think he had 24 points against the Utah Jazz the other night. So, I think he's been really important for the Stockton Kings success because, Stockton was the best team last year. They're one of the top teams even this year. So I think he was a huge part of why that team was also doing really great, especially last year for sure. But the Go-Go end up getting him. So now that adds another spot that kind of replaces those guys, but you have to understand Patrick Bowen Jr., Johnny Davis weren't really even playing much anyway with the Go-Go, so at least for this year. So now that's adding 2 guys, AJ Johnson and Colby Jones, in the mix, who are going to play more minutes with the Go-Go this year. So that's going to start taking away minutes from other guys like Taylor Funk, potentially Eric Stevenson. The third player I'm going to talk about is a new 2-way contract signing, Jalen Martin. Now, Jalen Martin is eligible to come back to the Wizards and the Go-Go for next year. Wouldn't shock me if he's part of a summer league team. But, he had over 30 points against the Go-Go about a couple of months ago. It was insane. Like, he could not miss from 3. And so I'm sure that caught their attention for the Wizards front office. And, they probably decided, let's sign Jalen Martin to that 2-way contract. So now it's a third player you got on another contract. And then the fourth player, we see that they signed JT Thor, which I did think about this more recently, and I talked about this in my grades video for 2-way contract players. I think signing the JT Thor might have been actually a better move if they didn't have John Butler Jr. anymore to kind of take his spot. Because if they knew John Butler Jr. was going to get traded, or they're going to have to move him, I think it was smart from an insurance standpoint to get him. I don't think JT Thor is going to be, he can't come back to the Wizards on a 2-way contract next season anyway because he's out of 2-way contract days. So really this was his last year on a 2-way contract. I think it's a better sign than I initially thought. So you have him now also in the fold. So again, guys like Michael Foster Jr., Taylor Funk, they might not play as much. We see Mohamedou Gay is coming back from injury because he was out for some time. So guys are getting healthy again. They're making moves. And I think, in a way, the team was really good going into the trade deadline. The question was, could this team stay at number 1 afterwards? Because you have new guys coming to the fold who don't know the plays, who have to learn the playbook. Now you have 2-way contract players who are actually playing. Now we see Tristan Vucevic, who's now getting minutes with the Wizards, but he was also starting to play minutes with the Go-Go because he was coming back into the fold after he was out really for the first half of the season with an injury. So, creates a challenge with minutes, but I think those stay ready guys like Funk, like Michael Foster, have done a really good job when they're ready to play. When those guys aren't like Colby Jones, AJ Johnson, or maybe JT Thor, Jalen Martin, when those guys aren't with the Go-Go and are with the Wizards, those guys have done a good job stepping up. And one other thing is that we also see guys like Jalen Noel and Jalen McDaniels and Eric Stevenson getting called up. I think when you see guys like this getting called up, especially when teams like to call up guys within their organizations, it kind of shows some aspect of loyalty. And it's all about business and relationships. And I think when you see this happen, these agents, these players, it just shows your reputation. It shows that maybe if other players in the future want to come here and they see, hey, this guy got called up, or these guys are getting called up every year, maybe we have a chance of getting called up, if we stay with the team the entire year. Because these guys could very well go overseas if they want. They don't have to play in the G League at all. So they have, in my opinion, I think they have more leverage. Especially the guys who've been in the G League and who are top players in the G League for a while. They have more leverage, in my opinion. So, they could very likely choose not to come back. But, if they do come back, then they do have, maybe they think they have the option to get called up. So that's just something I've kind of noticed and I think more about. And so, in my opinion, I think right now we have some health issues as of recording this video, and we have 4 games left with the Go-Go, or I think actually, 4 games. So, we have to win all those games. The East, as of right now, is super close. Like, one game could change anything for making the playoffs. So if we can win these next 4 games, I think we're in a really good spot. Again, that's my opinion with the Wizards. That's my opinion with the Go-Go. I think we have a very good team, and I really hope we can make a far run into hopefully getting a championship. This is the NBA 2K G League show. If you watch this video, feel free to subscribe, like, or dislike, because hey, you do you. So, thank you for watching, and peace.